Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen. All in crypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another daily cryptocurrency market update. I'm wishing you all a smashing Sunday. If you're around here every single day at 1 p.m. UK time, we release an update just like this one to help you stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening with crypto and also the broader markets. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing in this video. We are going to be looking at a clip of Ray Dalio talking about where we are right now. In regards to potentially being at an inflection point. And this is not just crypto related, this is broadly. You know, crypto was born out of what Satoshi thought was a failing fiat system. And it's almost, I've always said this, I'm always very cautious about the origins of Bitcoin and the true intent behind it. Because I've always felt like it was very much divine intervention almost too good to be true. That Bitcoin came about and has been just such a massive success. Yesterday, we looked at one of Reagan's economists actually talking about Bitcoin playing more and more of a role. And this is a theme between most economists now. People are starting to take crypto and Bitcoin very seriously. And actually, one thing that's really fueling this is the kind of bond market and the state of it. The entire world is ran on a debt-based system. This has been the case since we moved off of the gold standard into a completely fiat system. And that debt-based system has never been under so much strain, and we've never seen moves like this for 40 years, you know? So there's a lot going on. It crosses over into the crypto space. And actually, I think Bitcoin has been a lifeboat and is going to become more and more of a lifeboat in the world that we are now in. So we're going to start the video off with a clip of Ray Dalio actually talking about where he thinks we are. Then we're going to be diving into Bitcoin. I've got to admit, very lackluster price action. I know it is the weekend, considering the news that we had in regards to Grayscale's win in the courts not actually being appealed by the SEC. And then we're going to get into a number of other things like BlackRock clients pull out $13 billion from long-term funds. Stock market, the Magnificent Seven now at all-time highs. You've got to pay attention to markets broadly. I know we're crypto and you know, we want to be crypto specific. But you literally have the Magnificent Seven at all-time highs. And this is at a time where most of your sort of crypto people have been telling you it's doom and gloom, that it's still a very bearish sentiment, and the markets, I don't think, reflect that. Gold on the precipice of potentially going on to taking new all-time highs. It got a really strong bid on Friday's close. We were looking at last week actually a turning in risk, but of course we got that real dollar strength. You know, the stocks were up, gold was up, crypto sideways. Is it going to play catch up this week? We'll see. I think we're going to be getting a lot of interesting news in regards to an ETF. And then, of course, I want to just round things off with looking at the week ahead. So a lot to get into, guys. I am traveling next week, so I will try and keep the daily market updates consistent. I'll try my best. But let's dive into the clip of Ray Dalio talking about where we are right now.
Are we, in your judgment, in a moment in which the world order is going to change?
Yes, we're changing the world order. Okay. In 1945, we started the new world order. What I mean is, throughout history, there's a fight for control because there's no world court that you go to and plead your case. And so there's a fight for power. So there's a war, and then the winners come out of that war, and the winners set the rules. And so 1945, the United States had 80% of the world's money. Gold was money at the time. It had half the world's GDP. It had a monopoly on military power. So the U.S. set the world order. That's why the United Nations is in New York. Washington, D.C. has the IMF and the World Bank.
And its currency became the reserve currency.
And its currency became the reserve currency because of that set of circumstances. Okay, things evolve, things change, okay, over history. So the three big things that are changing now that haven't occurred in our lifetime is the amount of debt and money creation, which affects the value of money, and you can see it affecting what's going on every day.
Large debt means the printing of money.
Right. The large debt puts central bankers in a choice. Do you pay it back with hard money, or do you pay it back with printed devalued money? And if you pay it back with hard money, it's hard. In other words, that's when you have debt crises. So in all cases, they eventually print money, and that produces inflation, right? So that dynamics, the first...
And that's the place we are at this moment.
That's the place we are at this moment.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that.
We'll drill down on that
in a minute. The second is when there's a great internal conflict, usually when there's a large wealth and values gap, and at the same time as you have a financial problem. Then you get populism of the left and populism of the right. In other words, those who feel disenfranchised want people who are going to fight for them. They don't want compromisers. They don't want them to be in the middle, because middle means that they're not fighting for them. They want them to have guts. So that you have populists of the left and populists
And
of
their
the right.
positions harden.
And their positions harden, and there are no compromises. That's why we're potentially in a situation that you could see in one of these elections, maybe in 2024, that neither side would accept losing. Perhaps we see that. You see, maybe you don't follow the rulings of the Supreme Court. Anyway,
That's a serious question today.
So these things have not happened in our lifetime, but they happened many times in history. So if you look at that, you see from those patterns why the gaps become greater and the positions harden, and you see the dynamic. So that's the second. And the third is the rise of a great power to challenge the existing great power. In other words, I gave you the example of how the United States was so dominant in 1945. Now it's not as dominant. It is not dominant. In other words, China and the opposition is as strong as the United States and its allies. And so we have a conflict. And there are 5 kinds of wars. And they start in this order, just sequentially, typically. A trade war, a technology war, a geopolitical influence war. Then you get into a capital and economic warfare, which we are now with sanctions. They always happened in history. And then there's a military war. And so you could see that progression happen through time. And that creates a template. So I like to look at the template and then plot dots to see how we're transpiring relative to that template.
So I don't want to scare anybody with that clip, but we certainly are in a very interesting time. And this crosses over into what, I do as a crypto investor, and we have to weigh all this into account. And despite this, we've actually been very bullish on the markets this year. It's a shame really for us because we've been very right on our market calls, certainly for risk doing well in 2023. We don't see a recession coming when people expect it. We don't see that crash coming when people expect it. We think it comes later on, as has done with every interest rate hiking cycle. And we've actually looked at interest rates in relation to the S&P and when a crash occurs. And there's a theme there. And we ultimately think that for the crypto space, could end up having a pretty much full bull market into a crash. And we're in a kind of 2007 period. I could be totally wrong on that, guys. It's just my own take and opinion. And of course, my money is always where my mouth is as an investor. And we are long the markets. But Ray Dalio brought up some really interesting points there. And I just wanted to really start with this because Bitcoin was created at a perfect time. And we're seeing people really warm up to it. I am a little bit shocked with Bitcoin's price action. I don't really like how we've rejected here. But I am a little bit shocked that Bitcoin's price action didn't do better on the kind of grayscale news. And also Cathie Wood's new Bitcoin ETF filing signals a coming approval. This is from a Bloomberg analysis saying we believe there's a 90% chance of approval for ARK's January 10th deadline. So we'll see how that plays out. You are on the cusp of becoming globally recognized as an asset. And we'll see what happens. A quick comment on gold. Gold is about to break new all-time highs. And I think it has a lot to do, again, with what Ray Dalio was talking about in regards to the debt. My personal take on gold is that this is a bull flag and that you're going to break to the upside of it. And this is going to give you targets towards a $3,000 mark. This lines up with the fact that we think the S&P is going higher, and we ultimately think crypto is going higher as well. It was interesting to me that BlackRock pulled $13 billion from their long-term fund. Last time they did this in terms of outflows was during the sort of pandemic. Again, stocks doing very well. Gold, I think, is going to do very well. That's the most messy bull flag ever. And then, of course, you'll take the target. We'll see what happens for crypto. Ultimately, for me, Bitcoin is still in a range and it needs to get out of that. You're still in this range. It could go either way. We can see the further downside scenario playing out, a deeper correction before we get that upside. We can also actually see this being taken. This is not an area I'd take any kind of position, certainly with leverage, other than to just let it play out. Looking at the sort of risk-off thesis that we had for the dollar, we'll see. It's bounced at the same point that the stock market has rejected. And you need to see a push through this, and that's going to be a risk on. You need to see the dollar continue to roll. We'll see if this was just a retaliation move and you do get a deeper correction, or whether this is the start of a new trend. We did look at a potential neckline here. I wouldn't bank on that at all, given just how strong this has been. And of course, last week was big for economic data, and certainly the sort of bond side of things, which is one reason gold probably did quite well. And I think Bitcoin may start to appreciate that in the weekend. So we could be looking at a really green week. Talking about next week, let's look at some economic data. You've got Monday. The only thing you've got is the state MFG index. Tuesday, you've got Bank of Australia minutes. You've got UK employment data, German ZEW index, US retail sales, and Canadian CPI. Wednesday, you've got Chinese GDP. You've got UK CPI, US household start and builds permits. That's going to be an interesting one, certainly with real estate and what we've looked at. USEI crude oil inventories, and then Thursday, Australian employment data, US initial jobless claims, US existing homes, Friday, Japanese CPI, and UK retail sales. So that's really all we've got for you guys. Like I say, I'm going to be doing quite a bit of traveling next week. So I will try and keep these updates as consistent as possible. Let's see what happens. I'm going to be doing a meeting with my Patreons today where we are actually going to look at a number of things that we find very interesting. Crypto stocks, smaller cap stocks, they're all potentially aligning with our view of markets generally doing well over the coming months. But we'll see, that they can get invalidated. I think, we've got a very good take on the fact, and we've been right largely this year, and certainly last year, the bear market we managed to avoid a lot of. But we'll see. There's a lot that needs to happen. There's a lot that needs to continue going in the right direction. And there is this kind of changing world order, like Ray Dalio puts it, at hand. On that note, guys, I'm going to love and leave you. If you've enjoyed this content, a like is always appreciated, so is a comment. And yeah, have a smashing Sunday, guys. Catch you in the next one.